Well, hello everybody. Mike with Spray Jones, and I promised that I was going to do a video on what you're seeing here. A problem with the foam. The foam is not making good foam. We're not getting a good pattern here. And 17 years of owning Jones, 22 years in the spray foam industry. This one had us a little bit perplexed. I've got this on a loop. It's just looping over and over and over because it's just a 10-second video. But let me describe what you're seeing here. You're seeing 2-pound closed cell spray foam being sprayed out of a Fusion O1 chamber. It's being sprayed onto a warm substrate. There's enough temperature settings. The settings are high enough that we should be making foam just fine. The gun's clean. The chamber's clean. The foam is not super old, and we switched into this set and had been using the barrel before, and everything was fine, and then we went to a different job, and all of a sudden this is what we've got. Now, when you look at this pattern, if you can even call it that, I'll hit the pause button here on the next loop, and we'll see what we're seeing right here. Right here we're seeing resin, and we're seeing isocyanates. We're seeing nearly pure isocyanate alongside the resin. And if you know the Fusion air purge gun, the resin is on the right hand side of the gun and the isocyanate is on the left. And this lines up with the ports in the chamber. So the resin would be coming in and wanting to mix on the right side and on the left. So what's going on here? We don't have an overpressure situation. We don't have an imbalance situation. The chamber is not old. It has been used just the day before and it was fine. The same settings for the foam the day before when it was fine are being used as far as temperature is concerned, pressure is concerned. We got 1,000 pounds coming out of the end of the gun. We don't have any cavitation. Like I said, there's no dispressure or imbalance, pressure imbalance. It's maintaining ratio the entire time at the gauges, but yet we can clearly see here resin and isocyanate, and it's lining up with the duality of the ports in the chamber. So what in the world is going on? This stumped us, you know. I got two guys spraying with me. One of them's been spraying for 11 years. The other guy's been spraying for 8. And when they encountered this, they took the video. They said, "I've never seen anything like this." And there was only one thing that we could think of that was different from any of the parameters before as to why it was doing this. And I'll tell you what it is. They had switched isocyanate barrels, and when the day before it had been spraying properly, they were using a fairly fresh brand new barrel of iso, and on this job, on this particular job, they had switched over to an actual pour down barrel of isocyanate. Now, we've all seen isocyanate, or resin I should say, we've all seen resin lose its reactivity if it sits around too long, especially if the drum has been left open. But I have not seen resin react this way with an older isocyanate. Now, we've seen things get a little bit sluggish. We've seen isocyanate get a little bit crusty and what have you. But what we are witnessing here is that the polymeric MDI, and now poly just means many, the many molecule linking ability of the isocyanate has lost its connection points. So think of it like pop. The fizz is gone out of the pop. And what we have right now is a non-polymerizing MDI. It's not wanting to link up and make foam with the resin. So as a result, you've got resin that's coming in. Some of it is matching up with the iso, and that's why you're seeing foam on this right-hand strip. But you're seeing bleed-off pressure of unpolymerized, linked up molecules on the left, and you're seeing that bleed right out, and hence why you're seeing this duality of the products. So the isocyanate has actually lost a bunch of its oomph, its chemical reactivity, and as a result, it's just a flow through like motor oil. It's actually coming into the gun, into the chamber, and it can't link up with the resin, and as a result it's just bleeding off, hence why the pressures are staying completely balanced. It's not throwing an error code on the machine. We've got pressure bleeding off evenly and consistently. It's being rebuilt back up. We are seeing some reactivity, as you can see here, but purely two chemicals that aren't exactly mating up. So as soon as we switched out of that pour down barrel of isocyanate and went back into a fresh, newer barrel, the problem immediately changed. And this is what I'm talking about. All the settings are the same chamber, same gun, haven't cleaned a thing out, haven't turned the temperatures up, haven't turned the pressure up. All we did was switch out of a pour down barrel into a fresh barrel that hadn't been opened, bled the system through, pushed out the old isocyanate back into the old drum, and then put the gun back on, pulled the trigger, and now you're seeing a perfectly atomized and 1-to-1 ratio mixed foam. So to the non-sprayers that happen to be watching this video and you're like, well, what's a pour down barrel? What's he talking about? You can never suck your barrels fully dry, right? Or you don't want to, because you're going to incorporate air into the system. So there's a transfer system, a transfer pump that goes down into the barrel, pulls product up out of the barrel and force feeds it into the back of the proportioner machine. So every spray foam guy is going to stop spraying before the barrel is completely sucked dry, switch out into a full one. So then he's got maybe 2 gallons or more, or a little less. You know, it's always a trick to try and do it. You've got 2 gallons, let's say, of material in the bottom, so you need to pour that down, pour that out of the drum into a fresh drum. Now, some guys will save up their drums for a little bit. Maybe they've got 3 or 4 or 5 to do, and they'll do the pour downs into a bucket and put the bucket into what they're spraying. And that's exactly what we're dealing with here. The guys had some pour down ISO that had been sitting around for a little bit longer, and I was shocked. I mean, again, in 17 years of actually spraying foam, hadn't seen an isocyanate that was from a pour down that didn't want to do its job. Usually the isocyanates, because they're heavily, they're the hardening agent in the foam chemistry. Sometimes if they've been sitting around a long time, they get crusty. They get a little bit of like sand in them. That's seeding. That'll clog up your screens, clog up your filtration system a lot faster, and that can create a whole lot of headaches because it'll just eventually plug it up. But I've never seen a situation where the actual isocyanate had lost enough of its polymeric qualities that it didn't really want to react anymore. So you say, well, what are you going to do now? Well, the pour down barrel it's garbage in essence, but it can be used for getting rid of other garbage barrels. Like when we switch over from a half-pound foam into a closed cell 2-pound foam, we always have waste material, right? We'll have upwards of 4, sometimes even as much as 5 gallons of accumulated waste material of switchover. Well, what do you do with that? You can't just dump that down the drain. So what we'll do is we'll take some isocyanate in this exact type of situation, cure the product over, make it mix, make it kick over. It'll make sludgy foam or whatever kind of foam. And then once that foam has hardened up a bit and cooled down, it can be broken up into pieces and thrown into a large garbage can and go to the landfill into the dump. So that's a good, effective way, because once it's a cured material, you can get rid of it that way. So there you go. To you guys that are out spraying foam, make sure that you are doing your pour down ISOs as soon as possible. Don't let them sit around. Don't let them get all crusty. Don't let them lose some of their reactivity. But if you are just switched out materials and you're switched into an old pour down drum of something, resin or ISO, and you're noticing that you're just having problems with pattern, problems with reactivity, it's probably going to be the sluggish old chemistry, and it's not anything to do with old chemical or machinery, I should say. It's old chemical. Likewise, if you're hiring somebody and they've got some old drums that have been sitting around, see, this is why it's dangerous to hire guys that aren't working frequently. If they've got some old chemical that's been sitting around, especially opened, it's been opened and open to the air, then yeah, you can get some problems where this stuff is just really not suitable for going in your house. I mean, it might be okay for a pig barn or something like that, But even that, you might not want it because it's not physically going to do what it needs to do, and it's going to create problems, not adhere, pull away, shrink, do all these things. So crisp, new, properly maintained chemistry is an important thing, and this video is just a little bit of enlightenment of what good and bad can look like. So hope you enjoy. Comment, tell me what you think, and we'll catch you on future videos.